Hey, this is Pat, and today we are checking out the all-new Klim X1 Alpha helmet. Now, the X1 Alpha launched at EICMA a few months ago, and we've been hearing nothing but questions since then, so it's nice that we finally got our hands on one. We were able to take it out and test ride it and check it out, and I can honestly say, for those of you out there that are looking for a new Klim helmet, and maybe you're doing some adventure touring, or a little bit more touring than you are adventuring off-road, the X1 Alpha might just be the best helmet out there for you. When you're looking at their lineup, now a lot of people thought this was going to be a Cryos replacement. I can let you know right out of the gate, and even if you're looking at other reviews that are saying it or comparing it, Klim did not intend for this to be a replacement to the Cryos Pro. The Cryos Pro is still very much though their ADV off-road helmet. The X1 Alpha is going to be going in the ADV more touring, more road focused, a little bit quieter, a little bit easier on aerodynamics out on the road, and that was their intention. So a lot of the reviews out there, if you are hearing that right out of the gate or doing comparisons, they're two very different animals. The Cryos Pro is still going to be your go-to when it comes to off-road ADV from Klim, and if you're looking for something a little bit better for on-road touring, a little bit off-road capabilities, but more so for the on-road comfortability, you can look at the X1 Alpha. Now it is coming in at the $850 price point, so it's about $100 more than the Cryos Pro, so sitting above that, but a lot of the features you're getting start helping to justify the overall cost, starting with a full carbon fiber shell. It is a new carbon fiber compared to the Cryos Pro that they're actually putting in there. I really dig that. It's a layered carbon fiber throughout. It is available in sizes ranging from extra small up to 3 extra large, and there are 3 shell sizes: extra small to medium, large is its own shell size, and then extra large up to 3 extra large. So being a medium, I like that I'm actually in the smaller end of the spectrum, and in that medium comes in around 3 pounds 6 ounces, so a couple ounces heavier than the Cryos. Again, the Cryos has always been one of the lightest ADV helmets out on the market, maybe until the new Liats came into the equation, but this is going to be right at 3 pounds 6 ounces, which is still considered very light for an ADV helmet, especially when you consider you get a lot more features, a lot more ventilation, and peaks included. They tend to get a little heavier, so you're looking right around 3 pounds 6 ounces. It is DOT and ECE 2206 rated, so you do have that extra safety certification built into it. And I will be honest with you, the fitment on this one is intermediate to oval to round oval. One thing I will say is it is good for front to back. It is a little bit longer front to back like most intermediate ovals, but I don't think if you are on the longer oval side of the spectrum, you can really get into it. You got more space on the sides than you do at the forehead. So if you are on the rounder end of the spectrum, you might want to give this one a try on. It might be a little bit better for you compared to, say, the Cryos Pro or just your average intermediate oval fitment. But if you are long oval, I'd probably suggest to maybe look at the Cryos instead, just to get that better fitment in there. But when we start looking at all the features and start breaking it down, I started to, like I said, really like this helmet just out of the gate. You do have a much more aerodynamic peak, again, aimed at more road riding than the Cryos Pro. And there's a trigger up top that you have on there. It's just a button that you can push to adjust it forward and back. If you want to remove it, you actually just push it all the way forward, and you can pop it out on each side, which, yeah, I'll actually just do on here. You pop it out on each side to go ahead and have that. Going to put them back in is just as simple as doing it in reverse. You can run it without the peak on there, so it is going to be like a modular street kind of variant when it comes to the overall shell. They will come with plugs. If you don't want to run the peak, you can plug it up on there. That'll be included in the box on that one. You can also remove the shield if you want and run it more as a dirt orientation. Again, most ADV helmets have that out there, but I like that it's adjustable. I like that it's much more aerodynamic, and it helps push a lot of the airflow into the ventilation up top. Speaking of ventilation, you have 2 down at the base. They go right to the face right inside, so it can cool off your face. You can turn that off and it'll go right to the shield to help defog up there. Cool part is too, which not many other people in other reviews that I was watching out there noticed, is that you can just pop these off. I was talking with the designer over at Klim. They are made to easily pop off and pop back on if you want to pop them off just to get better airflow if you're riding more off-road. But if you're on the street, one thing to keep in mind is you want to make sure that those are still on there, because that's going to be a heavy input from noise out on the road. And that actually goes for the top vents as well. Up on the forehead, you do have 2 vents tucked in up there. You can just put your finger onto them, pull them out. It'll feel like you're trying to break them, but they'll just pop right off. Looking at the shield, you do have a dual-sided lift tab for each side that you can go ahead and lift it up on there, and it is a photochromic out-of-the-box shield, so you do have a little bit of sun protection. It'll go from dark smoke to a clear shield when you hit the sun or if you go into a tunnel or anything like that, and it is pin lock ready with the pin lock in the box. I have it installed on here for you, but it also comes with a regular clear shield, so if you're just looking to run a clear shield, you have another one in the box on there. Pretty decent detents, I will say, pretty stout, and I know talking with Jason and the the other design team over at Klim. The one thing that they focused a lot on was this little crack position. We call it the city position. That's one thing that they really wanted to focus on, was keeping that just enough to have airflow to your face. On really hot days, you get that cool off, but it won't be something that's excessively noisy. It's not going to lift up on you in that position. It really holds true in that spot, unless you want to lock it down, which you can, but it holds true in that spot down there. And then it's really stout in the upright position if you're running goggles underneath of it. Now, I did test it with a bunch of goggles out there. Don't look to put in like the Armegas from 100% or the Liat 6.5s, but your average racecrafts, your average size goggles will fit just fine in there. I wish they would have added a little bit more space on the side so that you can close the shield. A lot of people do that riding off-road. You come to a mud bog, instead of getting your goggles dirty, you can just close the outer shield. That'll take the full brunt of the water splash, and then you lift it back up and you got clears under there. You can still do that. I just wish there was a little bit of space at the side, but the reason there isn't, which I think is pretty dope, is the gasket all the way around the sides on this helmet. The gasket in there is actually an automotive grade high seal all the way throughout. So that's gonna be something that helps really keep water out in the event of rain. It's gonna help keep wind noise down. It's really gonna help keep all that air vibration from getting inside the helmet, making it noisier, making it a little bit wetter if it is raining out there. So I like that they're using a higher quality gasket all the way around, something that they focused on, which I think is pretty dope on the inside of there. Spinning around, taking a peek at the back, I mentioned the vents in the front. You do get ventilation at the back, both in the spoiler as well as at the base, just to help suck that airflow out, with a decent spoiler built into the rear, and you get a little flat spot so you can get goggle straps on there. They'll hold tight and off to the side. So again, exterior-wise, I think Klim did a fantastic job. Once we start tilting to the inside of this helmet, one thing that I do want to call out is if you look at the liners all the way around, one cool thing they added in there is a little bit of elastic inside, like the chin skirt and at the back of the helmet, just to help seal it. But when you get helmets that seal better, it's quieter, it's more aerodynamic. We see that with a lot of touring helmets out there, but they can be more difficult to get on. So I like that they're adding a little bit of that break in there. They are using suede leather. It has a great hand to it. It's got a little perforation throughout, as well as some reflective, so you can get in and out of it. And just like we saw with the, the opposite of what we saw with the Cryos Pro. The Cryos Pro uses a fidlock closure system. This is double D-ring. So it's actually just a traditional double D-ring. They did that consciously to make sure that they have an option in the line for everybody out there. Some people do not like fidlock, don't want to go near it, so you have an option within their line that doesn't use it. But the interior liners of this helmet are pretty cool. And one thing I'll call out is pulling out the cheek pads, a little bit of contour on it, nice protector right up against your ears that uses Velcro to stay in place, but you can add comm systems in it. But removing those and popping them out, I'll also remove the neck curtain around the edges here, if you just give me 1 second, because I want to call out the sides. That's just neck curtain around the bottom just to help keep the airflow out. You can see this minimalistic side of both sides of the shell. Easier to mount a comm system on the sides. Nice flat surface if you want to add a comm system on there. They learned from their older helmets to make it nice and sleek. If you're using an adhesive mount, if you're just clamping it on there, they gave a nice shallow end. It also helps stay away from the collarbones. So again, if you are riding a little bit more off-road, you're not going to be SOL. You got that option in there. But inside is where most of the protection is going to be taking place. You do have that top liner. Again, I mentioned before, it is a burr liner system. So it's going to be nice and cooling. It's going to have a great antimicrobial system during the summer riding months. If I just snap these out here, don't want to break anything. Pulling the top liner out, it's pretty standard 3D printed top liner with a lot of ventilation holes throughout. Snaps in the front and back. You don't feel the front brow vents or the front brow snaps as much as you might think. We typically like to see a brow mount. Klim, if you're listening, would love to see that in the future. But after wearing it for a while, you're not going to try it on. If you are on the longer oval of the spectrum, like I mentioned before, that might become an issue though for you. But you do have an EPS liner on the inside. You do have speaker pockets in here that are covered with foam. If you're not using speaker pockets, make sure you keep that foam in there. It's going to make it quieter just because you don't have a giant valley. But it will fit 45mm speakers out there, which are the biggest on the market right now. Should fit no problem. But one thing I want to talk about is something you actually can't really see. You might be able to see it on, if I get Mike to see it on the B cam over there, is you can see the green KOROYD system on the inside of the helmet. Now, KOROYD is a tubular system that's actually welded together, and it helps compress when it comes. It's very much so like EPS on absorption of the impact materials in the event of an accident, but it helps ventilation go throughout. Now, the Cryos use that system next to EPS. It would be behind EPS. The one in the X1 Alpha is actually sandwiched, so it's EPS, KOROYD, EPS. So it helps use all of the system on there without changing the exterior of the shell. I think Klim did a great job of making the shell pretty small, considering you have a sandwich of impact materials on the inside. So hats off to them. Good channels in the EPS that's going to help flow that air. You can see it goes right to the KOROYD and directly to the vents. I've worn the F5 KOROYD helmet out on the trails. So has Spurgeon when we're ridden together. You can actually see steam coming off of the helmets and pillowing out on a rider on a hot day or a cold morning, just because of how much the ventilation on the KOROYD system really helps out. So I dig that they're adding that in there. I like that they're adding the double D-ring and giving that option to anybody out there that doesn't want the Cryos Fidlock, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands it's not a Cryos replacement. It is something that stands on its own at the top of their lineup when it comes to helmets for those ADV touring riders out there. It can absolutely do the trails. It more is focused on doing the road sections, but if you are, say, going cross country, riding around the world, or whatever you're doing, when you're on the tarmac, it's not going to be a really uncomfortable helmet at higher speeds, but it's going to be capable of doing everything off-road. If you're riding more off-road, the Cryos is still sitting there. In fact, I think they're lowering the price a couple bucks, around the $750 price point, so you do get a little savings there before we see a replacement in the near future of that one. But if you have any other questions, go ahead and click the info button. That's going to take you over to the product page where you can read other rider reviews and see what other riders are saying about the new X1 Alpha. If you still have questions after that, or if you're confused on sizing, just want to make sure you get it all dialed in for your riding, or if you're trying to compare between the Cryos and the X1 Alpha, give our customer service agents a call. They're all riders, happy to help you get set up for your next ride. I want to thank you for joining me and taking the time to check out this really cool helmet, the Klim X1 Alpha helmet. I'm Pat, and I'll see you in the next video.